The King and the Quest for Wisdom. In a prosperous kingdom long ago, there lived a wise and just king named Rajavir. He was loved by his people for his fairness and kindness, but deep inside, the king always felt there was more to learn. Though his kingdom flourished, Rajavir was constantly seeking wisdom beyond the riches and power he possessed. One day, a neighboring king visited Rajavir's palace and shared tales of distant lands and their great wisdom. Rajavir listened with fascination and realized that wisdom was the true wealth he sought. Determined to find this wisdom, he announced to his court, "I will leave the kingdom in search of true wisdom." The royal advisors were shocked, pleading with Rajavir to stay and rule, but his mind was set. He left the kingdom in the care of his trusted ministers and set off on a journey with only a horse and a few supplies. He knew that the path to wisdom would not be easy, but he was ready to face the challenges ahead. After many days of travel, the king came across a small village at the foot of a mountain. He noticed that the villagers were poor, but seemed to live happily and in harmony with one another. Curious, Rajavir approached an elderly villager and asked, "What is the secret to your happiness?" The old man smiled and said, "We are content because we share what we have, and we care for one another." Rajavir was touched by the simplicity of their life, and the warmth of their hearts made him think deeply. He stayed in the village for a few days, helping with the work and learning about the villagers' way of life. As Rajavir continued his journey, he climbed the mountain and found a monastery hidden among the clouds. Inside the monastery lived monks who had devoted their lives to meditation and study. The head monk welcomed the king, sensing that he was on a quest for wisdom, and invited him to stay and learn. For many months, Rajavir lived with the monks, learning the art of meditation and the philosophy of life. He discovered that true wisdom was found in silence, self-reflection, and understanding one's own heart. Though the teachings were profound, Rajavir still felt that his journey was not complete. One day, the head monk told Rajavir, "You have learned much, but wisdom is not only found in solitude. Go out into the world, and you will discover that wisdom is also in the hearts of those you meet." With these words, Rajavir decided to continue his journey, eager to learn from the world around him. As he descended the mountain, Rajavir found himself in a dense forest, where he met a group of woodcutters. They worked hard, cutting trees and carrying heavy logs, but their faces were filled with joy. When Rajavir asked them how they found happiness in such difficult work, they replied, "We find joy in the strength of our community." Rajavir stayed with the woodcutters for a time, helping them with their work and learning the value of community. He realized that wisdom was not just knowledge, but understanding the importance of human connections. Though the woodcutters' lives were hard, their bond made their burdens lighter. After leaving the forest, Rajavir arrived at a bustling city where he saw both wealth and poverty side by side. The king was troubled by the sight of beggars struggling to survive, while merchants lived in luxury. He sought out the city's wisest man, a philosopher, and asked, "Why is there such disparity in this city?" The philosopher replied, "True wealth is not in gold or riches, but in the balance between giving and receiving." He explained that when people hoard wealth, others suffer, but when wealth is shared, the entire community prospers. Rajavir realized that wisdom also meant understanding the balance of wealth and generosity. Rajavir began to help the poor in the city, using what little gold he carried to buy food for the hungry. He encouraged the wealthy merchants to give more to the needy, showing them the power of generosity. Slowly, the city's people began to follow his example, and the divide between rich and poor lessened. As his journey continued, Rajavir came across a wise old hermit living alone in a cave by a river. The hermit had renounced all material possessions, living only on what the earth provided. Rajavir asked the hermit, "What is the greatest wisdom you have learned in your solitude?" The hermit smiled and said, "The greatest wisdom is knowing when to let go of what you cannot control." He explained that many people suffer because they cling to things that cannot last, but peace comes from acceptance. Raja Veer thanked the hermit and realized that letting go of fear and attachment was part of true wisdom. Raja Veer's journey eventually led him to a desert, where he met a traveling merchant who had lost his way. The merchant was panicking, afraid that he would die in the desert without finding water or shelter. Raja Veer comforted him, saying, "Sometimes, the greatest wisdom is having faith in the unknown." Together, they walked through the desert, and just as the merchant was about to give up hope, they found an oasis. The merchant was overjoyed and thanked Raja Veer for his calm guidance in their time of need. The king realized that wisdom was not only in knowledge but in trusting the journey, even when the path was uncertain. As Raja Veer neared the end of his journey, he found himself standing before a great ocean. He watched the waves crash against the shore, feeling the vastness of the world around him. In that moment, he understood that wisdom was like the ocean, deep, ever-changing, and infinite. With a heart full of wisdom and new understanding, Raja Veer returned to his kingdom. His people welcomed him with joy, and he shared all the lessons he had learned on his journey. The kingdom thrived under his wise rule, as Raja Veer led with compassion, balance, and generosity. As the years passed, Raja Veer's kingdom became known as the land of wisdom and peace. People from distant lands came to learn from the king, who ruled with a heart full of love and understanding. His journey had taught him that true wisdom was not just knowledge but the power of kindness, humility, and balance. Moral of the story: true wisdom is found not in wealth or power, but in kindness, humility, community, and the understanding of life's balance.